When the cop asked who I wanted to press charges against, I said my fiancé's name and watched everyone I loved turn to stone. I'm not going to dance around it. I almost died at my own rehearsal dinner. I can feel people clicking away when they hear peanut allergy, because it sounds like a quirky inconvenience, a cute EpiPen anecdote. It isn't. It's an on-off switch. It's a coffin with a hinge. I carry the pen because I like breathing, and I've made that clear to everyone in my orbit. No peanuts, no tasted, it's safe, no exceptions. Over the last year, my fiancé, 30M, made me believe he got it. He would read labels, wipe counters, call ahead to restaurants. He had this gentle, teasing way of saying, "We're a no-nut household," and I let myself feel held by that. But there were hairline cracks. His mom thought I was dramatic. His sister rolled her eyes when I brought my own snacks to a family barbecue. One time his best friend joked that I was the no-fun police. Mark would squeeze my hand and change the subject. I told myself that was enough. I wanted it to be enough. I'm a teacher, 28F. I believe in the long game, in being coachable, in trusting that people rise to the bar you set. We booked this small restaurant for the rehearsal, a place I picked because the chef walks out and tells you what's in the sauce. Did I stack the deck in my favor? Of course I did. I called twice. I sent an email with peanut allergy, severe in the subject line. I printed a little card and handed it to the manager when we arrived. I got the nods, the smiles, the "we've got you." I let myself sit down and exhale. Everything felt bright. My dress was a slinky silk number that made me feel like I'd stolen my future self's confidence. My dad gave me a stiff hug and whispered, "Proud of you, kiddo." My mom was already talking about centerpieces for the big day. Laughter shimmered. Mark slid into the seat beside me and kissed my hair. He smelled like cologne and mouthwash and a future we'd named out loud. Appetizers came, bruschetta, olives, a crisp salad with shaved fennel. I took a bite, then another. I remember liking the salt of it, the cool, what was it, something like sesame but rounder, richer. I chewed. I swallowed. I set my fork down. There's a tightness I get when peanuts are near. It's not a mystery, it's a bell tolling far away. I felt it, thin and high. I looked at the salad again. My skin warmed. My tongue buzzed. I reached for my water and, in some part of my head, I was already mapping the route to the door, the air outside, the pen in my bag. I told the server, "I'm allergic to peanuts. This doesn't have any peanut or peanut oil, right?" He froze so completely it was like the room tilted. He said very softly, "The dressing is a blend. Housemate. I can check." Then he did something that lives in my body now. He turned, scanned the room and glanced at my fiancée. The glance that says I am stepping onto the thin ice where secrets are kept. He returned with the manager wobbling behind him, and the manager said the chef said the blend was safe and approved for the guest with the allergy, the guest whose name was printed on the little card. They'd taken extra care because, and here is where the words leave chalk streaks in my mind, the fiancé requested it. I don't remember standing up. I remember the pen in my thigh, the table skewed, a cold voice somewhere saying, "Call 911, Mark's hands on my shoulders saying, you're okay, and I remember very clearly that my mother did not stand. The ambulance lights were the color of bad decisions you can't unmake. On the way, I heard the paramedics' radio buzz and thought about how fragile we are, how ridiculous it is to imagine a future when a spoonful of the wrong oil can erase you. I turned my head and saw Mark's face, wide open with fear, but there was something else tucked in there, a shadow that didn't quite fit. I survived because I always do everything right. I carry the pen. I keep my bag within arm's reach. I have practiced calm the way other people practice scales. When the ER settled into its humming indifferent routine and my throat felt less like a fist, Mark ran his fingers through my hair and cried. I cried too. I wanted to believe that this was an accident in a world that would never dare to hurt us on purpose. Then my brother walked in, pale and vibrating, and handed me his phone without speaking. His hands were shaking so hard the messages kept jumping. The screen showed a group chat I was not in. It had a name I will never forget. If you've ever found yourself staring into the hole a word makes when it passes through you, you know what Operation Desensitize did to my nervous system. The chat included Mark, his mother, his sister, and, horrifyingly, my own mother. The first message was from months ago, right after Mark and I got engaged. His mom, "We have to normalize the allergy if this is going to be a family." My mother, "She gets anxious. She makes everything about it." Mark, I know how serious it is, but she spirals. It unspoled from there. References to building tolerance, micro-exposures, and my least favorite sentence in the human language: people overstate allergies these days. There were links to sketchy blogs, to some guy on YouTube talking about retraining your reactions. There were emojis I will never forgive. There were screenshots of my messages where I reminded everyone about hand washing before my niece's birthday cake, where I asked politely if we could avoid certain restaurants. Control freak, his sister wrote once. My mother, replied with a laughing face. The week before the rehearsal dinner, the chat flared with logistics. Could we get the chef to use a tiny amount of a neutral oil? We do sesame all the time and she's fine. Peanut is no different, it's in her head. Mark again, we can't do anything dangerous. Then his mom, dangerous is her life ruled by fear. My mother, thank you. The manager had told the truth in the worst way. It was approved for the guest with the allergy. The request had a name attached. It looked like care. I was lying there with the 4 humming into me, skimming my own trial transcript. The chat continued after I was loaded into the ambulance. She'll be okay, she always overreacts. This will prove it's not that bad. Mark wobbling, I didn't mean for this. His mom swift, you did the right thing. She'll see we're a team. I handed the phone to the ER nurse because I didn't trust my hands and heard myself say, can you keep this? The nurse's face sharpened like a blade. She read. She looked up at Mark, who was trying to make himself small. She lifted her chin and asked if I wanted security called. I said I wanted the police. Mark started pleading in that rapid, breathless way of someone who wants to buy back a moment after it's been spent. I thought it was a trace, it was supposed to be a trace, your mom said. He looked at me like he could pull me back down into the bubble where he's a good man doing his best. The thing is, maybe he is a good man who did a wicked thing. The thing is, I don't know anymore who I'm engaged to. The officer asked me for the story and my mouth told it all without dressing it up for company. The officer asked the manager for receipts and kitchen notes. The manager brought out the labeled bottle and the prep card and his hands were shaking so hard you could see the oil vibrate. The label said peanut. The prep note said guest approved, and under special instruction, it said the word microdose. I saw the server in the corner watching me like he wanted to time travel back and slap the bottle from someone's hand. My father arrived during the part where they take your blood pressure and your faith in your people. He took one look at my face, at Mark standing off to the side like a schoolboy in trouble, and asked, who do I punch? It is terrible to confess this, but I smiled. I smiled and then I cried harder. My mother arrived next, powder on her nose, mouth set like she was ready to negotiate a discount on my near death. She reached for me and I flinched without meaning to. Then she saw the officer, saw the manager, saw my brother with his phone out, saw the way my father stood between her and the bed like a fence, and her voice turned into something I don't have a name for. Don't be theatrical, she said to me. To me. The officer asked to see her phone. She paled, then said she didn't have it, and my brother said, it's in your purse. And for a long, breathless second we all watched my mother choose which person she wanted to be. They took the statement. They photographed the prep card. They told me that this wasn't a prank. This could be felony assault depending on what a prosecutor thought. The officer asked who I wanted to press charges against, and I said Mark's name first because, whether or not he poured the oil, he poured permission into people who wanted me smaller. His mom exploded. She'll ruin his life, she spit, and the officer calmly wrote her name down too. My mother said, don't do this, and my father said to her quietly, stop talking. The doctor discharged me with a warning and a sheet of instructions I could have written with my eyes closed. The nurse squeezed my hand and whispered, you are not crazy. Those 4 words felt like an oxygen mask. We left the hospital into a night that had the gall to be beautiful. My phone buzzed like a hornet's nest. Friends, cousins, my cousin's cousin, people who had already heard a version of the story with me cast as the villain. Hurting people who love you. He was trying to help. You're making a big deal. At 3 a.m., I sat on the floor of the apartment Mark and I had half moved into, staring at the boxes with our names in Sharpie. He walked in with eyes like a flooded basement. He asked if we could talk. He said he never meant this, that he thought, he thought, small exposure might make our lives easier because the internet says it's possible. He said, your mom said it was the only way you'd relax. He said he only asked the restaurant to put a neutral oil, and that his mom must have miscommunicated. He said the word miscommunicated like he wanted to splice it into the moment as a tourniquet. I asked him if he would have thought any of this was okay if the allergy wasn't mine. He started to cry again. I cried too. I tried to find the boy who read ingredient lists like a love letter. I couldn't. By dawn, the sun made our boxes look like gravestones. I stared at the dress in the garment bag and tried to remember what it felt like to be excited about a future. And beneath all of it was the steady drum of an awful, simple fact. The people closest to me had decided that the way I say no doesn't count when it inconveniences them. I canceled the venue at 7:12 a.m. I called the florist. I called my boss. I texted my friends. I texted his friends. I called the hotel. I told the caterer I was sorry. I sat with the commitment rings in my palm until the metal warmed like skin. At 8:03, someone pounded on my door so hard I thought it would split. It was his mother. She pushed past me before I could decide whether to be brave or polite. She had her fix-it face on, the one I'd seen at holidays when she ran logistics like a general and treated human beings like stubborn parcels. She said she was here for Mark and his reputation and that, "You've made a mess, dear." She said it like you say you've spilled milk, like the solution is paper towels and a shrug. I asked her to leave. She didn't. She stepped into the living room and looked around like she owned gratitude itself. She told me I didn't understand what I'd done, that I was turning a lesson into a criminal matter, that no jury would convict someone for trying to help the woman he loved. She said my allergy was psychosomatic. She used the word psychosomatic like a club and I watched the air around it bend. Mark showed up, out of breath, eyes on me. He begged his mother to stop. She told him to be quiet. She told me that if I pressed charges I would financially destroy her family. She told me her niece's scholarship was on the line because, "You're making this into a scandal." She connected dots to threaten a picture she hoped would scare me. She kept talking like she could talk me back into the shape she needed me to be. I said I would not discuss anything until she left, and she laughed, and it sounded like a drawer slamming. I picked up my phone and started dialing. That's when she said it, the sentence that snapped something final in me. If you're going to be part of this family, you need to learn to compromise. Compromise. Like my throat closing is a bargaining chip. Compromise. Like breathing is negotiable. My father arrived mid-argument, bless him, with a jaw like a line drawn in ink. He told her to get out. She told him he raised me soft. He smiled, slow and terrible, and said, "Soft doesn't mean suicidal." She left then, throwing a last look at Mark that said, "Whose side are you on?" He stayed. We sat on the floor again because chairs felt like too much maturity. He said he would stand by me publicly. He said he would tell everyone it was his fault. He said he would testify. He said he would go no contact with his mother if that's what it took. He said all the right things like he'd stolen them from a script written by the decent version of himself. I wanted to believe him so badly the wanting hurt. I asked him why he didn't pull the brake when the chat started veering toward dangerous. He said he didn't want to start a war. I asked him why my life didn't outrank peacekeeping. He said he thought the exposure would be so small I wouldn't even notice. I told him I noticed. He cried. I cried. We were a chorus of sorries with no melody. Then he told me something I didn't know I'd been waiting to hear. He said, "I didn't think you'd leave." That sentence sat between us like a low hum you can't unhear. In the end, maybe that's the whole story. They didn't think I'd leave. They thought I'd bend and call it love. They thought I'd shrink and label it compromise. They thought the future mattered more than the person who had to live it. I spoke to the detective again. I gave a fuller statement. I sent the screenshots and the food prep card. I blocked numbers until my phone went quiet. My mother sent an email with the subject line, "We need to talk like adults," and I put it in a folder named for later and then renamed the folder for never. My father came over with a roll of tape and labeled boxes with me and didn't say, "I told you so," not even once. The venue deposit is gone. The flowers will bloom for someone else. The dress is going back. My apartment smells like cardboard. The quiet at 2 a.m. is loud. I have never felt more alone in a room full of furniture, and I have never felt clearer. People are divided into camps, loud ones. One group says I'm cruel for ruining a man's life over a mistake, as if the mistake didn't come prepackaged with a permission structure built by 4 adults whispering in a private room. Another insists I shouldn't have involved the police because family matters should be handled in-house, which is just a fancy way of saying secrets deserve protection. There's a chorus suggesting couples therapy like a bomb you can smear over a bullet hole. There's a smaller, stubborn choir that keeps texting me proud of you, and I replay those words when the room gets dark. I know Reddit loves clean endings. I can't offer one. The legal process is slow by design. The people who tell you to wait for closure never say how long the waiting room is. Mark is staying with a friend. He sends me long messages about his shame and his hope and his promises. I don't respond because I don't trust the part of me that wants to accept his apology so I can pretend I live in a world where this didn't happen. Here's what I know, and maybe it's the only clean line in this mess. I pressed charges, I canceled the wedding, I chose the kind of love that keeps me alive even if it means being alone longer than I wanted. I didn't ask to be brave, but here we are. So, am I the asshole for involving the police and blowing up a relationship that, on paper, had everything because the man I was going to marry decided to test whether my body's boundaries were negotiable? Or is this one of those moments where you draw a circle around your own breath and say, this is sacred, and if you ask me to compromise here you aren't asking for love, you're asking for surrender?